So grateful to be here and very happy to discuss these incredibly important and hard to talk about topics. He has an incredible backbone and staggering moral fiber. Howie is totally committed, completely ethical, totally admirable. No pressure if you can hear this, but honestly, Howie's a hero to me.
John, you joined us before, and it was a pretty incredible kind of testimony you gave, and you just devoted your life to advocacy for child trafficking, and even 9/11 truth. Maybe you could explain to us, in the last decade, what do you think the most challenging parts of coming alive on some of these issues have been?
Probably the hardest thing, and it continues, is just realizing that pretty much everything that I was told and taught since I was in grade school is probably not true. And hello, good evening, and welcome to the Traffic Report. It's about 12:02 for my iPad in the Eastern time zone, where the three participants in tonight's show are residing currently. We've got Appalachia to Philadelphia down to the state of Florida. We're truly spread all over the map. And so welcome, everybody to the show. Welcome. This is the part 3 of the trilogy of A Teacher's Story. And I have, as a host, waited with bated breath on each segment, and this one's no different. So welcome, Juliet. Welcome, Howie.
Hi.
Hi, everybody.
Yeah, actually, we have no idea what we're going to hear tonight, so it's actually exciting. John, I gotta jump in. I just checked on my Twitter and I saw something from a friend who said, I can confirm that Howie and Fireman John do not ask for money and have no monetization sites for the work. And I'm like, so I had to click on the thread, and
yeah, you got accused. You got accused of something earlier. I saw that. That was
it just
must be the wrong guy. The guy. Well, the guy. I mean, the guy I know doesn't take donations, and he works for a living.
This is really important, because I've noticed a lot of trolls on Twitter. They have, for some reason, they have these numbers after their name. Mm-hmm. I probably should have kept track of this more, but this is a guy, Theodore, and it's Theodore with an E, and then it's at Theodore, no E, 758-40212. Yeah. And here it goes. And yes, Seaman, Seaman, Howie, and Fireman John, along with Sawyer, are profiting from Pizzagate. Donations accepted. The only people I trust to have our backs in all of this are those who don't ask for money. I've been fighting pedophilia within churches for decades. Look no further. Theodore with 18 followers. Now, I can say, if you want to,
now, you think he's a troll? Do you think he's a troll?
Yeah. If you want to call it profiting, I have raised on GoFundMe somewhere in the neighborhood of, I believe, $800. $800. I asked one time I needed money to go to Washington, D.C. I needed the money. Like, I just didn't have it.
Yeah. And I'm in the hole. I can tell you, I'm in the hole.
Yeah. Right. So
are you. I know you're in the hole, because I know what you the time you put in.
Yeah, I've done 3 GoFundMes, and each one of them, I actually got more money than I asked for. And I thank, anybody that's ever given me a dime, and I feel awful having to ask for money. The second one was the first one was specifically to go to Washington, D.C. That was probably for the March 25th rally. The second one was just an overall for summer demonstrations, getting up to New York for Gay Pride, and I had a lot of other things planned before I got smashed over the head. And the last one was for the Hillary.
Yeah, you paid. I think you're on the downside just from that hospital bill.
So in 1 year, I have raised $800. I'm not denying that.
And I'm a little upset at being lumped in with David Seaman and the sandal guy, Craig Sawyer. Hey, what are you going to do? We're targets. We're public figures, and we're open. It's open season on anybody that works in the child trafficking.
But I've never known you to. I don't know you to have a GoFundMe page. I never have. I'm definitely in the I figure I just wanted to kill. I just saw it, and I've never been accused of profiting off of pizza. I don't know what. I could show you my clothes. I could show you my bicycle. I can show you my apartment.
I know what you eat a very plain diet, so
Yeah, I will.
You're not spending any of this imaginary money on restaurants. So,
no.
We're going to talk. I want to get on to Juliet quickly, but she's experienced, a lot of these same attacks. I'm experiencing them now. I'm having to spend money to go down to another state with legal representation to fight a convicted child rapist. So. And I gladly spend that money, and I'm glad I can afford to spend it. But I just want to get a little piece of good news out, because in this whole reality that we're in now, I was able to talk to an attorney, and the universe works in strange ways. God works in strange ways. But on a totally unrelated legal matter that was important, that we just got taken care of, the attorney that I happened to get referred to by a guy who's an ex-Baltimore homicide cop and also an attorney now, happens to be in child advocacy, and he's been a great help with what I need to do in a few weeks with this convicted child rapist. And the other thing is, we're forming another network, and I know Juliet can do this, and I know even you can do this, Howie, and we're doing it. But what we talked about is there are legal entities forming that are helping survivors. Okay, one of them is right in my county here in Virginia, and I didn't even know about it. I know about it now. We thought that this guy, there was basically not a whole lot you can do to them, but boy, were we wrong. And what he's doing now is getting the same type of organization that's in the locale that this individual is in, to go after him legally. So there's legal help for survivors. There's legal help for people that are being harassed by, say, the school board in Broward County. Mm-hmm. We're getting a network of people, and this guy just popped out of nowhere for me. I mean, and just, I started telling him, why we were there, basically for this one. It was part of this one legal reason that we were there. But then I find out that guess what, Juliet? He had texts of a school board member in Little Marion, Virginia, that was texting with a 15-year-old girl, and probably had a relationship that he presented to the school board. And he's an officer of the court, and he's been unable to get the school board to get this individual yet. But towards that end, he's forming this legal network of attorneys. There's a group in our area. I'm sure there's a group in your area, and Howie's area, and hopefully we'll do that outreach, and we'll have some backup.
Oh yeah, I'll connect everybody that I know here who could use it.
Yep, and how I synchronicity, so that's the good news. I want to get on with your story, because you're sharing some of your personal experience with being a survivor. And I'm awed by everything up until this point, and I'm sure this won't be the last time that you're on this show. So please.
Well, thank you. First things first, I want to really ask that everybody look at the video that's traveling around Twitter about the teacher from Louisiana who stood up at a school board meeting to question them about salary. And she was escorted out of the meeting and then forced down on the ground and handcuffed and arrested for asking the question. So please, everybody that you can, support her. I didn't catch her name yet. I just saw the video a little bit ago. But the likelihood that she's in for some of, and of course her district is like so much smaller than mine, so it's different money. But she's probably in for, they're going to try and terminate her for something for the arrest, and because that's what they do.
Yep. And please tweet that out on our Twitter line, tag us, and I'm sure you can, if you DM me on Twitter, that'll be in our show notes.
I will go and find the video again and reload it.
Yeah, whenever you can do it. You're you're busy right now. I understand. So go ahead.
Okay. So I wanted to start. Since I've included some of the early part of my career and why I became a teacher and some of the other stuff, I'm going to kind of skip that. I'm really going to start with my last few years at Coconut Creek High, where I started with the world's greatest principal and worked with some really great administration. And then I had cancer, and that year was the year that he left. And we got another principal who was kind of a nightmare. And, well, he was beyond kind of a nightmare, but nothing like still the next school. It was more us, the teachers, and then he would like selectively pick on kids. And so I stood up to them quite a bit. So then I had to go back out on medical leave. And when I came back, I was reassigned to Deerfield Beach High. I found out before I ever met the man, he was telling his administration to find a way to take my certificate. And I think it was because I stood up to the other administration based on what I considered abuse of the students.
So they're going after your certificate, but the guy who's in the FBI report admitting child rape.
Yeah, but that was a year before. Yeah, but that was a year before he was exposed.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying. I find it a little.
Oh yeah, it's crazy, right?
That you're reporting abuse properly, and they're going after your certificate, but they're trying to preserve his. Just go ahead. I'm sorry.
So I show up at Deerfield, and I meet him, and he rubbed me like there was something way off, and I thought, oh, he'll just get it when he sees me as a teacher. And so I started teaching, and during that year, there were all these different things that came up. Like I didn't quite have enough student textbooks, and, problems with my computer, and some other things that kept coming up that were just, odd. But I didn't think it was targeted until when I reported the child abuse in May 2011. And I properly reported it. And then I decorated prom at zero cost to them that year. And then the next day I showed up like the Monday at school, and that's when I got pushed and shoved around by the assistant principal, Keith Roberson. And the misunderstanding we had before, I want to clarify, because John Marlowe was not in the office when I was being pushed around. It was his office we were in.
Right.
So I left, and when I left, since I didn't have any students because I was teaching seniors, I went out to my car because it was like right around lunch, and I put out on Facebook that I may need some help because parents were making some allegations against me. And so needless to say, skipped through the whole thing. By July, I met with the police officer, and the questions were atrocious. Things like, "Are you gay?" And and I'm like, well, no, but what does that have to do with anything? And they videotape or audio tape the whole thing. And the police officer was laughing through it, so I figured it was like no big deal and it was over. And I just was waiting for the paperwork. Well, when I returned to school, my principal told me he had to have a special meeting with me, and he told me he couldn't wait to see what the police were going to do when they found out I'd turned someone gay. And and I walked out of his office and I said, well, he'll see when I get the report. And although I was devastated because of everything that was going on, my students, I was teaching advanced placement psychology, and I only had, there were like 250 kids. And I had like 45 textbooks. And this is advanced placement. At the end of the year, you take a test to, get college credit. And, of course, the school board gets paid $50 a child that is signed up for the class. And, by the way, that's a current scam that's going on because they're signing up children who are not signing up for AP classes. They're signing them up anyway. One girl had 5 AP classes. 5. That's just incredible.
Yeah, and I can second that part of your story because, I got exposed to their FCAT scam by some good friends of mine whose children were involved in that nightmare, and went to the school board and complained, and was the message that they got was it was basically about the money. So yeah, these are supposed to be civic institutions, but
right.
they're actually for-profit businesses. And the ones that are taking the profits out are the ones that are getting paid by the school board, and I suppose all the like having your own police force, so they're draining the budget right out of.
Well, at every meeting at Broward County, literally there are contract after contract that they're extending for more than $500,000.
Yeah, and now we're talking about the corruption in the contractors that are coming into this supposedly quasi-government
right.
organization, the school board, but you've got contractors just like Halliburton, I suppose no different, making money off the war in Iraq, but they're making money off the taxpayers of the school districts to the
right.
tune of what, $4 billion a year?
5.3.
5.3, sorry.
Billion with the B, which is mind-blowing at all. Okay, so at the end of that year, now I'm into, say November, and I got the letter stating that I had been, I thought, cleared. And so I literally skipped to the principal's office and made a copy so they could have it there you go. And they actually stepped up the abuse. I wound up getting observation after observation. I would literally get called in for meetings before school, when I was planning, and after school. At one point I was in the hospital and the doctor gave me a note saying she had to stay home for another week, and I was told that I was not allowed to turn in doctor's notes anymore. Okay, so
they're circumventing and basically
all over the place, yeah.
Their own policy. They're
and the law.
They're violating the law and their own policy with, it seems like, reckless abandon.
Right, and I'm not even talking about, I could have parked at a parking space that would have been really close to my portable that would have made things easier as a handicapped person, but I couldn't get the spot. Now, it was amazing because the coaches who were healthy and stuff, they could park in those spots.
This is,
if you go on my YouTube page, Hips for Change, you can see videotape of the bathroom with the fecal material all over the walls. If that's the teacher's bathroom, what do you think the kids look like? And that's the bathroom that gave me a massive pulmonary infection and sepsis that ended my career. So, okay, let me get back to this. Okay, so what happened was the whole year, the violence on the campus and the aggression was becoming so much more. Mm-hmm. And I kept asking other people, can you handle this? Can you take care of that? And nothing ever got handled. to the point where I had a basketball coach scream in my face that he didn't care what the law was because, again, student didn't come to school but could show up for basketball practice or games. So May is when I found out that there were the sexual assaults on our campus by the same boy. And at the same time I was being abused this way and hunted this way, I came to know that a whole bunch of other people on staff were too. And so on June 19th, 2012, a whole bunch of us, like 15 of us, went down to the school board meeting in support of an administrator who was being disciplined. And it was what she was being disciplined for that is absurd, even if it was true, and she says that she didn't do it. They disciplined her for writing anonymous letters about the safety of the school to the school board. They demoted her from an assistant principal to a teacher, which is like almost half the salary.
And is she still working in the system?
No.
Wow.
They forced her out. And then, so anyway, that was the day I went public. And I didn't know, I even had a right to speak at the moment, except the one person who was running the board is not the sharpest tack. And she said, is there anybody else who wants to speak to this? And somebody who was an advocate there already. I said, do they mean this issue right now? And they said, yes. And I got up and went forward. And then 9 other people came after me. And the superintendent was ordered to investigate our principal. And so he was ordered to investigate. And for the next year, 11 months, I was would go back to them going, really? Why isn't there an investigation? What's going on? Why isn't anything being done? And I finally got really ticked off because I got the word that there would not be an investigation. So the entire board ordered the man to do this job, an investigation into this principal, and he didn't have to do the investigation. And no board member asked him many questions either. So that's when I decided to start getting into research mode. And that's when I found out all the stuff he had been doing and all the different things that had come out of the district and all the different ways he'd lied to the community. And that's my real hard-hitting first one.
Can I interrupt you for a second?
Sure.
Because I guess at this time, with everything that's going on, I'm wondering why nobody was there, why nobody supported you in this, or why you feel nobody supported you in this. Because
actually, that's not true. I had a lot of support, but they had to be silent because these were people that worked in the district. And I'm telling you, that administrator who got disciplined.
Right, when I say support, did you ever try to put a coalition together of, hey, we're going to have a meeting or go to the teachers union or whatever the case may be?
Let me get there. Okay, because yes.
Okay.
Let me get there.
Okay. So the answer is yes.
So what happened is at this point, I was figuring that, you just go and expose it and that kind of stuff. And yes, I had gone to the union and I had asked my union for help. And what they did is my union, the Broward Teachers Union, set me up repeatedly with Broward Schools leadership. And by this time, I now have people who are parking in front of my house in my community, almost daily. And I mean, everybody who came forward had the same experience. So I'm not alone. And then, but they all had to back off because everybody who had a child under 18 had Child Protective Services called on them for child abuse every 6 weeks for months. Wow. And then if your children were in the district, your children were likely to be abused.
Yeah, and we've seen that in other situations.
So it was the reason why I appeared very much alone, but I really had an army behind me. They were just afraid.
Right.
And it's a shame because I kept telling them if we all went public together, it'd be over. But they were afraid, and they've been beaten into submission for decades. So, okay, so at this point, I challenged the superintendent at that meeting, and I attacked him, and I actually had a former student come to that school board meeting and speak to me. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to tell you, the day after we went public about the principal, 41 of a staff of 126 met with a school board member and handed her evidence of the abuse at that school. And that was supposed to be part of that investigation.
Yeah, and just, you know, the atmosphere has changed, but I would think, and I'm be talking to Elizabeth Beck about this, that not only you, but a number of those people, you've got a class action suit against that school board that would seem
and then we can include all the parents and everything too that I became very friendly with and am still associating with today.
So, I mean, and that's what we started the show with: power in numbers, networks forming. So I will personally pursue that with Elizabeth Beck and Jared to see if we can get something like that rolling. In Florida. So. Continue. So, and like I say, people are listening. You know, most of the people that listen to the show understand what you're talking about, and that it does. And I'll tell you the truth, I haven't the scale of what you're talking about. I'm not sure I've seen a scale like that, and it's probably because we've never had somebody inside an organization as big as the Broward County School District. So,
right, but please understand these tactics were used against, thousands. Parents have stood before the school board and said that they have to leave town after they speak at a school board meeting because of the abuse that they receive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. This is going on with whistleblowers in not only with the school system.
Oh yeah.
But with the fire department and the FBI, and this has been a pattern of behavior. And
well, I always think of Sharon Silkwood.
You mean Silkwood, the
exposing the nuclear commission? Yeah.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And so that was in the 70s. I mean, I remember that movie very well. And she got radiated for her efforts.
Right.
So, yeah, and people understand that, but I think what they don't understand is that they could probably go out in their community in, well, let's say Marion, Virginia, for example, and you've got an attorney that's being messed with, who's an officer of the court, that all he tried to do was point out that there's a pedophile on the school board. So we've got to we must network, and we must have the numbers to
so
prevail.
In this time period, I was trying to find an attorney, and several offices actually told me that Broward Schools had called their offices and told them if they do any work for me, they would never get any work from them. And in Florida, there is a limit of $200,000 to me.
So they're being, I know that. So that applies to, and that I didn't know. I know it applies to like some police departments and
civil litigation, anything against a government agency.
Yeah. So that's across the board.
Yeah, it's like I called OSHA and sent them all the video of the bathrooms and stuff, and OSHA actually told me, and I was telling them about the condemned buildings and different things that people were in, and OSHA told me that since it's a government agency, they police themselves. Yeah,
and I would say that's true, but in a case like that, what I would do if I was an attorney, I would be filing federal civil rights lawsuits against the individuals and the
school board. First you got to get the attorney, and I'm telling you, I mean, none of us could really get anybody.
I get it.
That wasn't taking us for a ride.
Yeah, but like I say, the atmosphere is changing. So what you may run up against now, could be much better. And I know it'll be better than what you were dealing with. How many years ago was this?
Well, I'm still in 2013.
Yeah, and even then, I mean, just in the last year, the culture has moved
Well,
seismically.
well, like this day that I went public and I started exposing everything, you can see this on my YouTube channel. The superintendent actually says that somebody on the school board was like feeding me information, and that
what was his point there? Yeah, I hope they are. What
no, meaning I wasn't intelligent enough to do it myself. That was the implication. And then the other school board member, who was new, and I was kind of giving her a break because she was relatively new to the whole process, and that's Dr. Osgood, decided to absolutely 100% come after me, that I was somehow breaching the ethics of the district, and I shouldn't be allowed to speak anymore, because I was telling the truth.
Yeah.
But they didn't expect that my student was there, and my student stood up and spoke for about a minute and a half and surrendered his last minute and a half to me, so I got to finish the second spank. And so then what they did is they supposedly impromptu brought up the police chief, David Golt, to the podium and asked them about my case, right? But he pulled notes out of his pocket. Okay, so it wasn't impromptu. You could actually see him on camera going on and off and on and off because they were getting ready to call him up. It was a setup. Mm-hmm. And what he did is he actually said that I was not accused of turning anyone gay. And you can actually see that allegation.
I don't think that's a crime.
No, but I'm just telling you, he said that was never what I was accused of.
Well, that's very handy for him to bring that up. It's kind of useless information because.
I use it all the time to humiliate them.
Yeah. But number one, it's not possible. And number two, if it was possible, I'm pretty sure it wouldn't be a crime.
So. Oh, I know. But then they gave this whole process with stuff like.
You might have to get licensed as a magician, but
I know.
I don't.
Well, one of the advocates in the district actually labeled an article he wrote about me, "Magic Teacher Turned Student Gay." So.
You're practicing magic without a license. I'm sure they'd like to put you away in Florida for that.
Well, I'm a witch, and I mean that from a Monty Python perspective.
Yeah. And I thank you because I love Monty Python. And
me too.
I know exactly what that means, and they probably, it sounds like what they're doing. They're using the same methods. If you're heavier than a duck,
right.
You're a witch. So they really haven't advanced too much, and these are PhDs. We're talking about, right? Most of them.
No.
The school board or
no.
No. Well, the superintendent must be.
No. He's
Wow.
Mr. Runcie, not Dr. Runcie.
Oh, wow. So yeah, I guess my expectations are too. I guess our maybe.
I'm sorry,
maybe
but in
Thomas
Broward,
Candy was
you know
a
what?
little
I mean, let's be honest. He's. I already know he's associated with Debbie Wasserman Schultz. So.
Yep, and Rahm Emanuel and Chicago.
Yeah.
And
from Chicago, and he brought his whole
yeah.
Chicago outfit with him, and it's been ripping off Broward, whatever. And so anyway, so what happened is at this point I've now got writing all over my car. The chalk things you can do on your car windows, and it's Marlowe is a bully, and then I put abuse of children in Broward schools, and it was written all over the windows of my car. And everywhere I would go in the county, people would go, "Oh, I heard about her," or "I heard about him." Well, her is his wife, Kathy Marlowe, and she's a principal too.
Like the principal of the pedophile.
Matthew Hall's wife, yeah.
Yes, right. Okay. So this is a network, and when we started this conversation, I think we were all, and I've actually I was talking to Trish about this, Trish Negron, and it's a network. I mean, and we were, that we're so, I guess, still naive that we're not willing to call it that, because we can't. The classic definition of a network is, okay, they groom the kids, they kidnap the kids, and they ferry the kids directly into child trafficking. Well, when you look at the Broward County School Board and everything that you've exposed and everything that goes on there, they may not physically take those children and put them into the network, but they damage them to the point where that's where they end up. Okay, because as we know, survivors of this type of abuse have a very high incidence of drug use, and you don't have, and not yet. I'm hoping we have more good outcome survivor stories like yourselves and V and Becky that overcome things like that. But how many thousands of children in Broward County have ended up at the end being trafficked because of the damage that was done? So that's a network. Let's call it what it is. It's a network. It's organized. Its aim is to cover up the abuse of children and allow pedophiles,
and to silence anybody who would say anything.
Absolutely. So I think even through our 3 hours, we have grown and I think all of us were kind of reluctant to say that, because we had that discussion when we were starting. It's like, well, it is a network, but it's really not a network. But it really is a network, and the only thing that's different is the children are flowing into child trafficking naturally, and God, how easy for them. They don't have to physically kidnap them. They can just damage them.
Shoot, I think I shared a couple more stories with you guys over the last few days of teachers who have been caught. I mean, one who had the girls intoxicated, 2 of them in his car, and somebody else that was actually, I think it was somebody who was trying to traffic.
Absolutely. And we know that. I mean, we know that from the research we've done. We know it from personal experience with survivors that that's where these children are ending up, and the networks are there. I mean, they're right there. The ones that physically move them around the country, the ones that rent the brownstones that compromise the politicians.
Right, but I know one of the stories I shared was a teacher on the campus, and he was a coach for something too. And I mean, how did the school not know that the student was staying in his hotel room when they went away for school events? Why were there no other chaperones?
Yeah, because
they don't want them.
It's a network.
No, I know. Those are questions really for the audience, Yeah.
And they're not rhetorical. They're going to get answered, because Mr. Hall with his summer camp is under a microscope right now, and is going to continue to be, and we're going to get answers. We're absolutely going to get answers, and none of us, yourself included, are going to rest until these people are where they belong, which is in a jail cell, at least.
So, Juliet, we brought you on for a third show. I was under the impression that you were going to talk about your own experience with abuse. I'm just wondering if you're comfortable doing that, or you're not comfortable with doing it. Because that's kind of where I thought this show was going.
Oh, well, if you want me to go back there, I can. I mean, it's like, actually, a lot of the things that happened in my life actually kind of relate back to Broward schools to me as a student.
I do want to hear about it, only if you're comfortable with that. And the reason, and we kind of talked about this, we get, there's such a big topic and there's so much to cover that we kind of go in a lot of different ways. But the message that I want to get out, and I'm sure you want to get out, number one is to survivors who have not yet come forward, that this can be done, and you can survive and live and be an amazingly capable, smart person that is helping other survivors in this battle. So that's what I and coming from, we were just talking about it. That's not the typical outcome of somebody who is a survivor of child sexual abuse. It's not typical. So if you I
don't know, how would you know?
Well, just from
No, I just meant I know many people who have survived so many different things in so many different ways, but you would never know it because you can't, they don't see it on them and they don't share the story.
Yeah, and that hopefully.
So that's what I meant. How would you ever know?
Yeah, and exactly. We know all the horrible stories, but we're just starting, and that's part of, I think, you sharing, what you personally went through, and to get those stories told, because I'm sure there are thousands and probably millions of survivors that have survived, that are leading productive lives, that have families, that have jobs, and that are waiting to become a part of this tidal wave that seems to be forming. So.
Well, and they also know that they don't necessarily have to share the story, but they just know they can get past it. Because there's some things I won't say, and I won't say them for specific reasons, and I think I shared with some of them with you before, and it's just there's no reason for me to hurt people that are unnecessarily.
Whatever
excuse me for 1 second. If you say you wouldn't share something for specific reasons, what would be those specific reasons?
It would be hurting somebody unnecessarily, but that we've already worked through stuff.
Of course, and that's what I mean. Whatever you share is yours to share or not to share. That's not. Okay. We're not.
Well, I'll give. I mean, absolutely, and I never judge. My only point to all this is, and we just talked about this pre-show about how we are trying to wake up the average person on the street who's not thinking about this. The average Joe the plumber, whatever you want to call it, the average person who is not thinking about child sex abuse, child pedophile rings, anything like that. So what do we have? We have arrests, we have convictions, and we have survivor stories. And we have child rape videos, i.e. child pornography. Okay? Mm-hmm. That's our evidence. That's our evidence at all. Everything else is, speculation. But when somebody's arrested, somebody's convicted, survivor stories, if they chose to be believing, and obviously anything on pictures and video, that is our evidence.
Right.
So when we're always trying to get people, no matter what, for the greater good, to speak out about their own experiences, to let others know. It's not for our community. We already know what's happening. But if somebody else hears what happened to an individual, then that's the reason we do this.
Right.
Yeah. And this is why we're having a survivors rally on April 28th. This is why we have a hashtag Pedogate News. We have
and I think that
15 minutes left in the show. If there's something that you would want from your own personal life that would help somebody get on board and understand that this is really happening, the floor is all yours.
Or that would encourage a survivor that hasn't come forward yet to do so.
And Becky is at the forefront of trying to get survivors to speak out.
Well, I mean, because we're so limited on time, I'll be super brief. I mean, let me see. There were things that happened in my life before this, but I'm going to start at 13 just because that's like the most logical place. I moved to Florida and was put in the Broward County school system. And we actually had a teacher who walked around with a metal ruler, and he would slap the girls on the butt. I mean, every class period. I mean, I got bruises. One of the teachers at that school, now I recognize I was being groomed. I mean, why would you drive somebody home who lived 2 blocks away?
Whoa. Who drove you home?
A teacher.
Isn't that against school rules?
It probably wasn't then, because we're talking about 78, 79. No.
Yeah. Different time, different. And some of that, I can attest to that, the stuff that went on in those schools as far as corporal punishment. My mom, I was 12 years old. they had to ask her permission, and she's like, "Are you kidding? Of course not." They're going to let some guy who really, looking back,
yeah, but this
now,
guy stood in the hallway and did it to every single solitary attractive girl that went by.
Oh yeah, I have no doubt. And the two guys that were trying to paddle me, I think probably had designs on a lot of the young boys in that school. But that, so at any rate, it was a different. Totally
okay,
different
but this
atmosphere.
part is not different, and this I found very scary as a teacher when I realized it later. I mean, I was like a 7th grader in class with a 16-year-old boy because he had failed, and so they just kept holding him back.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was teaching, I had one kid, he was like almost 20. He's sitting in classroom with 14-year-old girls.
Also a problem, but you and you have a teacher that's smacking young girls on the ass with a ruler,
yes,
and is taking you home, and you live 2 blocks away. So
yes,
let's a big problem, but yeah.
Oh, well, those were 2 separate teachers. One was one teacher that slapped all the girls, and the other one was somebody who drove me home a few times. And now I look back and get it.
Mm-hmm.
God, now I forget where I was. Okay, anyway, so the 16-year-old, needless to say, I wound up dating the 16-year-old and got way too sexually active for the young age. And there was no information. There was no, I don't know how to explain it, even red flags. I was a kid. So by then I started figure skating. And at figure skating, I met a police officer who was like 28, who would periodically give me a ride home. And now I recognize I was being groomed by this like 28-year-old police officer at 14. Mm-hmm. And what happened was my parents knew nothing, but we happened to move to a different city. So that's why I didn't get groomed. I later found out he groomed someone else.
So you're in this atmosphere, and I just thought of something when you were sharing this, that the atmosphere, and this actually happened, and I hadn't thought about it for all this time, but we had a female teacher in our school, I think I was in 6th grade, that we smoked marijuana with in her van, and was, we were all young kids.
I did that too.
Yeah, going through puberty, and that was like the best thing that we thought ever happened to us. But that was obviously, what adult woman teacher, and there was a number of students that this was happening to, and how many of those were actually ended up getting molested is what I'm wondering now.
Well, when I was in 10th grade, my parents sent me to a private school, Cardinal Gibbons, down here. And one of the teachers would meet like every weekend with a whole bunch of kids. And I mean, they all got drunk.
Was
super pervasive.
Was there any incidents of?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Mm.
I think I would have heard that.
Yeah. Well, and knowing what we sometimes know today, it's not necessarily true that you'd have heard that. And what I've found from my research is that you're not smoking marijuana with a bunch of 6th graders for that woman teacher, and you're not getting a bunch of minors drunk and nothing's happening.
Right.
So. But you don't have direct knowledge of that, which is that's not that surprising to me anyway.
Right around my 18th birthday, I was raped, and I put myself in danger, and it was because there had been, when people say certain things to you and you're already damaged along the way, it makes you seek that love somewhere else. And I had a 22-year-old guy who was like, come here, kind of a thing. Come over, we'll just watch TV. And I'd never really met a guy that you couldn't say no to, if that makes sense. And date rape in '83 didn't exist. I mean, there was no term.
Right.
And so, unfortunately, I shared what happened, but I didn't know how to share it that way. Mm-hmm. And the reason I shared is because as he was raping me and I was telling him, please don't stop, I'm a virgin, and his response was, yeah, and so is, and he named a friend of mine, and he said, she's next. And so I told her. And so she wouldn't fall for it, I guess. Anyway, needless to say, it totally blew up in my face like I did something wrong. And so I really kind of like pulled back and gathered myself. And it was about 7 months later that I went out with a guy that I had known for a really long time. At that point, I guess I'd known him like 5 years. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know that there was another guy telling everybody I was like this major sex kitten porn star, which wasn't true at all. And
wasn't that a police officer?
Yeah, that was the second guy, was a police officer, yeah. And what he tried to do is he actually tried to set me up for like a gang rape situation first. Now I know that. I didn't know that then. I was still too naive,
Yeah, and we've God, we found that to be true in the
he's a cop. You're going to trust him.
Yeah, well, a lot of kids in Louisville trusted the cops in that Explorer program.
Well, I know. I mean, the sexual assault victim that I was personally connected with at Deerfield. In all this, all of a sudden she starts, telling me that everybody uses everybody for money. And before that, it was all like, you are the only person who was there for me. And I couldn't imagine what was wrong. And then she said, well, I got a call from a police chief. And I didn't understand that Broward Schools had actually called her and told her that I was using her for money. And
I think it's extremely significant that you're running into the same abuser later on in your school board career that you knew and experienced as a minor, as a person that was a student. That's extremely.
Well, yeah, David Gold is not the guy who raped me, though. I just want to make that clear that I'm not making that allegation in any way, shape, or form. But I did know him when we were younger, and and he was part of the crowd of this other group.
Yeah, I think we kind of started this too late, and it's getting a little. I mean, it's getting a little convoluted. I need a few minutes at the end to do a couple shout outs. So if there's anything else you want to tell about your story, what I just want to do is I want people to encourage people to listen to your children, talk to them, find out the culture of their school, and ask very specific questions. Is there anything that bothers you that you see happening around campus? Doesn't matter whether it's between kids. We shared last week 480 student-on-student sexual assaults at Broward schools. And I'm telling you, that's not even close to the number. So please talk to your kids. If you are a survivor of anything like this, come forward. Talk about it. Trust me, it gets better.
Yeah. And we have networks already forming. We have a support group that's attached to our Facebook page that I'm sure you're going to be a part of, Juliet, in some way, shape, or form.
Okay, great.
We have... survivors not only of child sexual abuse, of what you have described going on in our school system, but also the same police organizations, the judicial system, and Department of Children and Families. So that's the message. Come forward, and you can do it in even an anonymous fashion and on Facebook if you have an account that, if you want to come forward and you don't necessarily want to use your name, you don't, if you have
even if you don't want to go public, find another group of survivors to connect to, because there's tons of us.
Right. And you're not, and that's a good
You're
thing.
Not alone.
That's a good thing I need to point out about that group. It is basically just survivors. It's not, it's not a public group. You're not outing yourself publicly in any way. We certainly would never dream of that. So, and anybody that wants to get involved with that group has contacted us either through Twitter, and please do. And we can, we do have resources that are forming, and we urge you to be a part of those.
And the second part of that is, the guilt is not yours. You don't have to carry any guilt for what happened to you, because that was done to you, not anything you selected. I know that that's a part of the angle that they take, but that's not true.
Yeah, very, very important message, and I'll thank you now, Juliet, and I want to give Howie the time that he needs, but just thank you for everything that you brought forward, the courage that it's taken to do this, for years on your own with basically no help, because our culture is set up to condemn whistleblowers. It's set up to stop support for whistleblowers, and it takes a very special person to continue on with this fight. And you've obviously been through something that we could never understand. And anybody that hasn't been through it on that level, I don't think would be able to understand. But a lot of the survivors and a lot of the people that are involved in this cause now do understand enough to be supportive and join this fight. So just thank you so much.
Oh, no, thank you guys, really. I mean, it's such a relief to be starting to really get it out there. It's been all these years.
And you've got a family now. You've got a couple of
Okay, but you need your time. Go ahead, Howie.
Yep.
You know what? I mean, it's not all that important. I mean, we did something for it. It's more of a Twitter matter. I'll bring it up on the next show. Basically about attacking hashtags. This was for the Golden Globes, but I'll get into a little bit more. Anybody that participated on Sunday night knows what it was all about, and I'll just make another announcement like going forward for the Academy Awards. But it's basically just talking about how to effectively use Twitter. But I don't have enough time right now, so I'll just leave it. I'll just leave it for the beginning of the next show. So
that'll be Thursday.
Yeah, that will be Thursday. Lot going on out there that we need to talk about.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it continues, and I'm sure we'll have you back at some point, Juliet. And I want to, we will stay in touch through Twitter, and please visit Julia's YouTube channel and her blog. And this information, just get it as far. And you're going to be getting some calls from some people in the media. Trish Negron, for one, that wants to have you on their Facebook Live shows. So we'll stay in touch. And,
okay, sounds great.
We fight on, and we're all a big family. I mean, everybody that's involved so far we haven't lost contact with anybody, and that's our strength. There's strength in numbers, and
yes,
that's what we're doing, and we don't give up.
Well, thank you.
So much. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Thank you, Howie. Thank you, Juliet.
See everyone Thursday.